Welcome to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I am your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm speaking to you from New York City on this, the 12th day of June, 2018. Before I talk more about today's show, let me remind you I am the author of Jay Taylor's Gold, Energy, and Tech Stocks, and you can subscribe to that newsletter by going to miningstocks.com. It is a weekly newsletter and then combines the best of the month into a monthly letter as well. And so again, that's miningstocks.com, or you can call our office here in New York, 718-457-1426, 718-457-1426 during the normal work hours. I would also encourage you to consider subscribing to Chen Lin's letter by going to chenpicks.com, chenpicks.com. Chen has had an enviable track record. He focuses to a great extent on the biotechs. He also, though, looks at a lot of gold mining companies as well. And other energy companies, and those are some of the areas that he has done exceedingly well, but especially in the biotech sector. It's chenpicks.com. I want to thank each of you for listening to this show, making it one of the more popular shows in the Voice America Business Channel. And I also want to invite you to keep your questions and comments coming along to questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. Questions, the number 4, Taylor@gmail.com. We do want to thank our sponsors for making this show economically viable. Our sponsors for today's show, RN Resources, Balmoral Resources, Bonterra Resources, Genesis Metals Corp., Klondike Gold Corp., Northern Empire, and Novo Resources. I do like to remind you that the companies are sponsors here by invitation, and the companies are really, they're invited. These are companies that I have vetted myself, companies that I believe in, I have recommended to my subscribers, and in each and every case have also owned shares in those companies. I would like to start out by just passing on a bit of information that I wasn't completely aware of, though I should have been, and that is the seasonality of the gold mining sector. I know my friend Chen is very much aware of this. In fact, he does some of his timing, some of his purchases based on the fact that the second half of the year is much stronger for gold and gold shares than the first half. As a matter of fact, on average since 1975, every month from July on through the end of the year have averaged positive territory. That is, gold on average gains in all those months. However, the first 6 months of the year, only 3 months are up and 3 months are down. So you have a 50-50 chance of seeing gold rise in any during the first half of the year, at least a 50-50 chance each month. So in any event, the worst month is March on average, and the best month is September. So anyway, that's just a tidbit, but I think it also helps to explain why many of our sponsors, the shares are down now from a seasonal point of view. Certainly that's the case, and I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of our sponsors that I'm very excited about. RN Resources, well, it's trading at about $1.10 right now in U.S. money. It was as high as $3 earlier this year, and I got an email from Ivan Bebek, the chairman of RN, this morning. He told me that the company has a lot of news coming out, will be coming out very shortly. The Sombrero project is due to start, a lot of news coming out from there, which is becoming, he says, more and more impressive each time we sample it and explore it. He's really excited about Committee Bay. They've been at 3.5 years at Committee Bay. That's in Nunavut. This is, he says, with tighter space sampling we did in the off-season, and we will be showing investors the new narrative of targeting, which is the best it has been in our 3.5 years there ahead of drilling. And he mentions, they'll start drilling in July. He mentions that it's really, there hasn't been any major discovery since 2011 of more than 5 million ounces in North America. And he is mentioning that, it just takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of hard science to go find the large deposits, which are not so easily found anymore. The easy ones were discovered and mined out a long time ago. So they're up in Nunavut, for example. But as they continue to practice good science, they increase the odds and de-risk the project. So he's very excited about the news that should be forthcoming from Committee Bay as this year wears on. But before that, a lot of good news, very possibly expected from Peru, where the company is now working, and especially the Sombrero project. Bonterra Resources, well, it's selling at around 42 cents now. It was a high of 72 cents earlier this year. This is a company that's developing a high-grade near-surface underground gold project in Quebec known as the Gladiator Project. Now, recently, the company announced an eye-popping assay of 34.3 grams per ton over 2.8 meters. Those kinds of grades are nothing new for this project, however. And based on the enormous amount of drilling that they've done over the last couple of years, I think you're going to see a much bigger, much higher grade deposit than investors are anticipating. Again, with the stock selling at 42 cents compared to 72 cents, you got the seasonality factor. But then later this year, it will be coming out with a resource that should really, I think, knock the socks off of many investors. I don't think investors are expecting it. If they were, we wouldn't see the shares where they are now, seasonality notwithstanding. Northern Empire is another favorite of mine, currently selling at around $1.19, a high of $1.62 this year. This is a company that's continuing to have successful step-out drill hole results in its new Carlin-style discovery in the southern end of Nevada's Walker Lane Trend. Now, it completely surrounds Corvus Gold's discovery, which is a very significant discovery in its own right. In my view, this is also a stock that is vastly undervalued given the fundamentals, and in addition, you have the seasonality factor if you don't own the stock to pick up some now. Novo Resources sold as high as $8.83 this year. It's now at around $4.50. The hunt for the next Witwatersrand Rand gold deposit is still alive and well. I spoke to Quentin Henning earlier today. He's the chairman of Novo, as you know, and he told me that we should expect some bulk sample assays over the next couple of weeks, within the next couple of weeks. But he said there's also likely to be an update before then. I don't know what he's talking about. We'll have to wait and see. Klondike Gold, well, that's selling at around 24 cents now in Canadian money. It's sold as high as 60 cents earlier today. Well, Peter Talman is going to be with me right after the commercial break in just a few minutes, and he'll be talking about the development of what they're doing there on the Klondike project, where some 20 million ounces of placer gold have been mined since the late 1800s in the great gold rush following that California gold rush. They've been practicing some really good hard science. They've really narrowed down and understand the geology now, it seems, better than anyone has ever. Well, they've really now been able to trace the origin of those 20 million ounces from the hills that surround the creeks from which those ounces were mined by placer miners going back to the late 1800s. So the bottom line for me with regard to the junior gold shares and gold in general is that the fundamentals of many of these companies are really starting to come into focus, and also you have the seasonality going for you now to pick up shares at bargain basement prices. Well, let's get on to today's show. I've titled today's show Gold's Monetary Rehabilitation. That's after the title of a paper written by Alistair MacLeod, and Alistair will be with us in the second half of today's show, and as I just mentioned, Peter Talman will be joining me in just a few minutes after the first commercial break. A quiet revolution is taking place in a monetary vacuum, developing on the back of the dollar's eroding hegemony. Maybe it's too early to call what's happening the demise of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, but there is certainly a move away from it in Asia. And every time the Americans deploy their control over global trade settlements as a weapon against the regimes they dislike, nations who are neutral observers take note and consider how to protect themselves just in case. So Alistair will be with me during the final segment, as I just said, to talk about these topics, to talk about gold and how gold is increasingly coming into play, although we don't hear much about it in the United States. Gold is a non-political currency. The dollar is a political currency. Obviously, there's advantages to being able to print money out of nothing, to create money out of thin air. The U.S. has had that advantage. Other countries aren't so happy about it, and so we're going to talk to Alistair about some of the actions, some of the policies being put in place by countries considered to be adversaries of the United States. A very important discussion coming up with Alistair. But again, turning to the more practical things, how can we make money? How can we make money and turn our investments, increase our wealth from that? Peter Talman will give us some ideas and at least help us understand his approach at Klondike Gold to help that company develop what a lot of us believe can be a very major project. Well, we are going to go to commercial break now, but as I just said, when we come back, Peter Talman will be with me.